So welcome everyone to our December Power Hour. We're live here tonight. We're going to do two layouts. I'm Tessa here in Indiana, joined by Megan out in Phoenix, Arizona, and per usual. We're going to start with me tonight, so let us know in the chat if you're new. It always surprises me that we still find new people to join us. But we are happy to have all of you, and then so many of your faces on the screen are our friends, our scrappy virtual friends, and it's good to see you and see your faces on camera. So we do look, I do stalk to see who's here. That's how I get to know you. There's quite a few people I think I would actually know in person if I saw them, just based on the little windows in Facebook. So we're going to flip down my table. It's probably going to be zoomed out because that's what it seems to do once, so it gets way zoomed out every time we start this. Okay, so tonight, here's my demo layout. I did want to talk about it briefly with a couple of options. It's funny, um, when I saw Megan's layout and that she used the linear plaid, because I almost did, and then I kind of changed the direction on this layout a little bit. Um, I knew I'll have a lot of Christmas photos coming up, so I want to do that. And it's funny, how many of you have ever completed a layout and you're all fine, and then you suddenly get it done and you're like, I don't actually like that. I really liked my little circles until I got it all adhered together, and then I was like, I was making the handout, I'm like, I don't like them like that anymore, but I'd already taken all the pictures, so they're staying. But I did want to show a couple of variations to what this layout could have been, and then I'm going to make it again with something blue. But I decided that like these were kind of busy. I told Angie too, one of the only ponchos I don't actually have is the Christmas Quartet. How many of you have that one? It has the little mini Christmas icons on it. I've sold whatever. I was like, you know what? I don't need to keep it. And this is like the one time I'm like, I wish I had it because I want to find, whenever I put photos on here, put little icons or something in my spaces. And I think the Christmas Quartet punch would have been cute for that. But to tone it down a little bit, I repunched my dark green circles. And then the Jingle Bells punch that I did with some avocado, and that kind of toned down a little bit of the design for me with that. The other thing I was thinking about was turning these into ornaments, but then I couldn't decide. What's the little top of the ornament where you put the hook thing on there? I was thinking about making those too and sticking them in here, but then I was like, well, if I was going to put little gold ones on there, I should not have used gold down my center, or maybe I'd have to use another color. But they could also be little ornaments for that. The hangers, yes, thank you. But this is the open house tags kit, which is pretty big. Tonight, we're going to talk through how to shift this line one direction or the other, depending on the size of your photos, what you're trying to do. And then, as always, we like to show variations. I used the BMC, that wavy scallop that came with secret box number 4. Maybe you didn't like secret box number 4 because you didn't like the neutrals, but the BMC I think is worth buying the box. I really like it because it's truly an edge style without having a lot of design. It really just does something on the edge, and that's pretty rare for us to find in a BMC, and it makes it very pretty to layer with different colors. So I'm going to pull my photo mats back off so you can see what we did here. So I layered it once on this side. I layered it twice over here. The other two, I thought Megan used the tool at first, and I looked closer at her instructions. Like, no, she didn't. Was, of course, the new border tools that we got. How many of you guys have had those? So I did pull these out. Yes, they're very reminiscent of the old ones that used to fit on our 10 by 12 mat. But if you have these tools and you want to play with them, they would also be perfect for this layout tonight. Because you can make your layers pretty easily using the different color of blades. The tools do come with the, here, look at this. I mean, it will come with this kind of the sizing guide. You can't see on camera very well, but it does show you where the red, green, and blue will cut along each line, so you can choose how to layer that way. So I did cut a couple of pieces to show you, because the reality is tonight, while I want to show you something different, I really want to use this BMC again on the layout I'm doing. But here are some of the examples of the cuts you could do. And of course, you can get your 12-inch decorative trimmer out. We don't want to forget that. We still love it, even though they stopped making it. And you could definitely layer with that tool also. So the only thing I wish, and it is inevitable with this because you're coming around the curves, I wish we could get more of a truly sharper angle on some of these cuts. It gets a little round because it has to curve around the track. But these would be good options for your edges too, if you wanted to use that as a variation. So I did want to show you those options for this layout. So tonight, I wanted to play with something blue. I recently completed an album for my grandmother. She's still alive, and in August she had her 94th birthday. She lives with my parents, and we had a family party for her, and a lot of them were there. The amazing thing about my grandmother is she had 13 kids, and 11 of them were boys, and she had 9 of those boys before she ever had a girl. So truly amazing. But I made a FAST book for her. She actually has lost most of her sight due to macular degeneration, but we wanted her to have a book she could show off to family when they showed up. I did not love Something Blue for weddings when it came out, but I fell in love with it for this album because a lot of these papers in here, I'm sure many of you have purchased it, is not actually wedding themed. And so I went through the papers and I chose this one. It has the light blue polka dots on one side, and the back side has a floral pattern. So this is going to be the 2 prints I use on each side of it. I am going to use a navy cardstock base. And then to layer in behind my pieces, I think I might use these border stickers instead of the skinny paper down the middle. But I went through the entire rainbow to pick out colors that would coordinate. White shimmer, of course, a bright white. This is Cloud, Cornflower, and Vista Blue Shimmer are all good options. So now I'll have to narrow it down which colors I want to use to layer with the prints. On my original layout, I already pulled off the mats, but you could fit a 4-inch photo white here, and over here you'd have to trim down a little bit. But for these photos, I don't want to trim as much. So I need to shift this line this way. So I need this piece to be bigger and this piece to be smaller. So how do you determine if you're adjusting that for your measurements? You can use your mat, of course. If I want to mat these photos, which I do, and I won't be able to trim that very, very much. So then I want that to be like 4 1/4, so 6 1/4. So I'm probably looking at pushing my line over so the center of it is about 4 inches. On my demo layout, I had 9 inches wide of design if you want to still have a little bit of your base paper showing. So if I shift this line this way, I would have plenty of room. So I'm going to cut one piece to be probably 4 1/2. I'm going to go like 5 1/2. I'm trying to look at my directions and then I'll adjust them. So the right side, I trimmed to 4 1/2. I'm going to cut that to 5 1/2. And then I'm going to drop this side, the left side, down to 3 inches. And then my layers, when I layer that, will make them a little bit bigger. Again, I want to use the same BMC because it's going to work really well with this collection. And I have that here. And I'm using this paper. So I'm going to go ahead and punch the left side. So one note, if you are using prints and you want to maintain, the horizontal, you'll need to know which side of the paper you're going to be cutting. Mine are non-directional, so it doesn't matter. A lot of us are right-handed, so we're inclined to punch this way. Just know the orientation of the left side of the paper before you punch that way. I am going to make the floral one, this one, the bigger side. I love the little scallop edge. And then I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna cut this to 5.5, which is basically the edge of my trimmer. If you're not sure, you can always cut something a little bit bigger and then trim it down. I will need a 2-page layout, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. This one I might just leave. It's a little over 5.5 with all the punching. It's more like probably closer to 6. I'm just gonna leave it. It's okay to have a little extra. I can always overlap it, but it gives me a little bit of play. And then now I'm gonna do the polka dot. The BMCs and the secret boxes, I'm confident were why a lot of us committed to buying them throughout the year. And they did confirm they're going to do it to us again in 2026. So this side I said I was going to cut down to like 3. I'm going to go a little bit, I'm going to push it a little bit more like 3 3/8 just to give myself a little bit of play. I can always trim it down if I need to. If you're using a different style of edge punch, maybe you don't want to do your layers. You also might want to cut your pieces a little bit wider. And then for my layers underneath, make some decisions here. I was going to do 2 colors on the flower side and 1 color on the polka dot side. And like I said, this will be on navy. I know choosing color can be challenging for some of us. And so I always just recommend just pick out, go through your rainbow, pick out choices, lay them all out, make your decision. I think the Vista, I think the cornflower is going to give me a better contrast. Unless I want to go a little bit more subtle. So I think I want to use the Vista shimmer. Maybe I do the cornflower and then Vista shimmer on the outside. Or this one. I'm going to cut these first and then I'll decide about that side. So it can be a lot of punching, but the effect will be worth it. I don't need these pieces to be as wide, just enough to layer. So maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. It was cute yesterday. So I had an Amish family make my cabinets. It's a 3 generations, a grandfather, a son, and then the grandson. So I had met them. This was the 3rd time because I went up there and then when I did my original install, and then when they came back yesterday, my brother was also here. But anyways, they were talking about me in the scrapbooking. And then they were telling me when I went in there that the Grandpa Homer's wife apparently does cards and crafting. And then Nelson, the middle, told me his mother-in-law did cards and crafting. And so I quickly came in here and went through my stuff, and I made little goodie bags to send up there to them. You can pretend like they're gifts from you. I had some regular shape punches. I was a little nervous, honestly, to send them like a border punch or BMC because I wasn't, if they didn't figure out on their own how to use it, I don't know how connected they are to like looking up a YouTube video. So I didn't want to send something up that they maybe wouldn't know how to use. And then I went through my embellishments. I figured embellishments were safe also to use with cards or. Okay, I'm going to layer in these pieces. So I wanted to do the cornflower and the Vista. I'm going to put some repo tape on the bottom layer. Layer these two and put the print on top. Now I can decide about what do I want to put with the. Okay, I don't think I like the Vista. Do I like the cornflower? Or I could bring in white shimmer and just have them be completely different. That might be a little bright, but it would also play the white there. Maybe it's too light. Decision's probably hard to see. It's pretty light. I'll go with the cornflower. I already have this piece punched. It's a little darker. I know, Judy. Shimmer's usually my go-to also. But I think I might be using some shimmer in the mats. Or at least bright white. So once you have two pieces, you can decide, how far do you want to center them ish? Do you want to push it to one side or the other? Sometimes it can be helpful to know where your photos are going to land. If I'm not trying to put photos down here, then maybe I want to push it more to that side. So I have room for my photos. If you decide that maybe your pieces are too big, you could always overlap them to make it smaller if you want to see a little bit more of your base showing. You could really change the entire look too and just put your photos overlapping the center if you decide not to decorate down that line. I do not have I take that back. I think I have one vertical photo. So when I pulled all these extras out, I realized that the one I don't have, I must not have had an extra of, is the one of me and my kids. And I'm pretty sure that's a vertical. But I'll worry about putting that on the other layout. So if on this side, how many of you used the new straight ruler? That was fun to use along the track. I'm going to do it at the 4-inch mark. So I'm going to gear this one. There, what I did find is not so much in this paper, but when I was working with Magic of Christmas, those papers are generous. They were a little longer than 12 inches, I found on a lot of them. But today, usually, as per usual, the cardstock's a little longer here. And then if you want to, your next point is to decorate down the middle. First, you want to cover the seam on the demo layout. I had covered it with a 1/4 inch of the gold shimmer. I was thinking about changing it up here. I told you I wanted to use the border sticker. This one is long and straight. I debated backing it, but because it's already in white, I would have used a white shimmer. I'm just going to go ahead and adhere it as is. But the BMC, well, I could wait. I could let you decide if I should or not. The BMC that works very well going down the middle, that goes well also with this wavy scallop punch, is mirrored scallops, because it has a scallop on both sides and it allows a skinny strip down the middle. And so it would allow this sticker to sit down the middle of the scallops also. So maybe I should go ahead and punch that. I could punch it with the Vista shimmer, I guess. I'll do that real quick. I agree, the sticker itself would have been fine. But for the intents and purposes of showing something else, I'll go ahead and punch one strip. I agree, the sticker will show up more with the little bit darker matting behind it. Sometimes we like that, sometimes we want more of a monochromatic, lighter tone. I'm gonna go ahead and adhere this up the center. If I want to make sure that I have this on straight, I can use my ruler. I'm going to put my base paper down. The new ruler has the track, so it's going to sit on the sides of each mat. I want this to go center up the 4-inch mark. It's about 3/8 of an inch off the center. But now the ruler, I know I can be confident. It's like they took the T ruler Megan and I loved and gave it a little feet on each side. But there we go. Very pretty, very simple. So I'm not going to do the circles, but obviously this is a layout if I wanted to. I think I might go through when I do my final decorating. And, just as an accent, I have the cake punch. Our circle is 1 3/4. So is the square we have. And so every shape that is on a punch like this size is sitting within 1 3/4. And so most of them will layer on top of our circles and squares pretty easily. If you don't have the circle or square punch, you need to go grab it right now because Creative Memories has them on clearance for $10. So I can have the little cake shimmer on shimmer. Maybe just tuck that into a corner somewhere. And then I'm ready for my photos. This one I might trim down and put it on the other side. If I trim it down to like 4 inches, I think it can sit on top of the vertical photo I'll have when I reprint it. And I'll probably put these in peekaboo. So I have to decide who gets to be on top. Me and grandma, my second sister and her kids and grandma. The grandkids do carry some weight, right? Because they're pretty cute. Or my youngest sister. Who gets to be on top of the peekaboo? I would say it should be me because I'm the oldest, but I'm not actually sure I want to see myself on top. So I was thinking actually the grandkids maybe should win. We'll see. You guys are sweet. You think I should be on top. But none of us really like photos of ourselves very well, do we? It's usually easier to feature someone else. So I'll put those into peekaboo here, this one down here. So I want to mat these. I don't always mat all of my photos. You guys know that. But I think for this layout, I would actually consider a double mat because it is kind of a special occasion. And so I could mat these on a very thin, bright white. And then I can mat that on top of one of these other accent colors. I could do the cornflower, or I could put them on cornflower and then have the extra matte be on white shimmer. So I'd have to think about that. I'm going to cut the bright white. I'll do one and then I'll pass it over to Megan. And I'll make my other page while she goes. So for this mat, I want just a real thin mat. I'm just doing, I'm going to do 4 3/8. And then I'll need 6 3/8. Oldest to youngest, that's what everyone's saying. I could. So do that white, and then I could set the white on top of Vista. Or on top of the cornflower. The double matte also would give me a little bit more weight behind that peekaboo, a larger matte. I kind of think the cornflower. Yeah, you guys are agreeing with me in the chat. Okay, I'll do cornflower. And I'll get this put together then while Megan goes. You don't need to watch me do the other side. There we go. I mean, look forward to seeing your variations. Some of them could be kind of time consuming given the amount of layering that can go with this if you wanted to. And now that we did the frilly scallops, we can move on to Megan and her straight line geometrics. These layouts were very indicative of our style, weren't they?
I do believe so. Let me push the right buttons. There we go. So welcome. As Tessa mentioned, I'm Megan Jacks out here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a lovely time of year. I have no complaints about the weather. This is why we live here. So any of all complaints should not be filed right now in the Phoenix area. If you're living other places in Arizona in the northern higher elevations, maybe you have some complaints. I don't know. My layout, as Tessa mentioned, is more about the angles. It is inspired by the new cutting tools, but it is not using the cutting tools, as you will see. This was kind of one of those things you started off in one direction and kind of end up where you end up. So let me go ahead and I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera and show you guys what we've got going. So here's the layout. This is a single page right now, but I'm going to make my second page because I go last. That always works well for me to create the second page while Tessa is, while I'm, I create my first page for the directions. I'll create my second page as part of the demo because I do a lot of the just replicating into a second page. So for this layout, you are going to need a base page, a base paper. Now in my directions, I do talk about that you can take a piece of designer paper and cut it into 4 3-inch sections. I have 2 left of my 12 by 12 paper. I cut it into 3-inch strips. This allows me to take one piece of paper and spread it across both pieces. If you don't want to do that, or maybe you're using cardstock or a paper that you have plenty of, you could use and just build it on a base background piece. You don't have to piece everything together. You will want a piece that becomes what I'm calling the page mat, which is this large white angular piece. So something that's going to contrast nicely. And then you will want to come in with a kind of a third color, which in my case is the black. I am using black shimmer for my mats. I do punch the the palm trees across the top. And then I do come across the bottom with linear plaid. I think linear plaid is a little underrated in the sense of when you just want a little bit of something, something without it being too distracting. This gives me some detail here at the bottom without being a distraction against what is going to be my photos. I am going to be using some lacrosse photos in here. I actually have my mats barely put on here because I don't know my overall photo arrangement, but I do wanted to show you, give you an idea of how you could put your photos on here. So we're going to start off by cutting our page mat. So I have a piece of bright white cardstock. And this piece we do need to take down to 10 inches to high. So we'll keep that 12-inch width, but we're going to cut 2 inches off. Depending on your page mat, you could punch. If you're using a designer paper that has 2 sides, you could maybe punch the a couple rows with a border maker cartridge. I wouldn't punch 2 with a border punch, but the border maker, because really that 10-inch height is, it's a nice reference point, especially if you are piecing together the background. But if you're putting this on a whole piece of paper and you need to do something else with your 12, the strips you're cutting off, you can certainly do so. But I'm going to go just my directions. I'm going to cut this to 10 inches. So I'm cutting off 2 inches. So now I have a 10 by 12, and this is where I need to go ahead and I need to do some measuring and some line drawing. So you're going to need a ruler. I've got 5 million rulers, and one of them is actually in the spot it's supposed to be. So one thing you need to think of here is you need to have this is there should be the reverse side. All right. So if you're using a designer paper, if you want this side facing up to you, you're going to want to flip it around so you're working on the reverse. And that being said, when you're doing that, you can see here when I drew my lines, I cut them, and then I flipped my paper over so that I didn't have to worry about my pencil marks. So you have to think about where you want your peaks to be. If you want your peak to be on the right edge, since you're working on the reverse, you're going to put your peak on the left. I'm going to just duplicate what I already made. So I'm going to put my peak over on the upper left and the lower right. So I've got my ruler and I need to grab, I'm going to do mine kind of bold because I have cardstock that I'm using. I can go ahead and use a marker so you guys can see the lines. But if you can just use a pencil, just something that you can see. And you can come in if you want and you can mark with your pen or pencil where you want it to be. I'm just going to put a little line at 4 inches over from the left. So at the 8-inch mark, I'm 4 inches from the left. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches from the top on the left-hand side. And I'm going to come down 1.5 inches on the right side. Now here's where I want to go ahead. I'm going to use my ruler as my straight edge. And I'm going to draw a line to connect those dots. Now I need to do the same thing at the bottom. If you need to, slide your piece down so that you're working back at your zero reference right along those measurements, right along the rulers. And I'm going to come up 1.5 inches. I'm going to come over 4 inches from the right. So I'm going to mark it there. And I'm going to come up 1.5 inches on the left. And I'm going to draw those lines. Now this is inspired by the new cutting tool, but the one thing about that cutting tool, and it was the same situation we had even with the decorative trimmer, where you don't have a lot of flexibility to shift where you want things to sit. If we look at the peak edge of the cutting of the new cutting tool here. Here's the peak, right? I don't have any way to move this. I would have to actually come in here and shift my paper around, and I could only move it by about a half an inch either direction, right? So I'm never going to be able to get my peak as far over as I have it here, unless I were to somehow try to, manually move it, but that's not going to work. So this is inspired, but it really does require you to use a ruler, mark your angles, and then cut them with your trimmer. But it's easy enough to do. After you have your pieces marked, your angles marked, you go ahead and you're going to cut. I could cut these with a decorative blade if I wanted to. I want just nice, clean edges, so I'm not going to worry about that decorative blade. And go ahead and cut those angles. After you've cut the angles, you flip your piece over, and that is going to be your page map. So that's really kind of the hard part of this. This is our kind of our unique piece here where we've got those angles done. You can, of course, vary your height. I could go ahead and slice these in half if I wanted to shift them onto 2 pages. You've got a lot of flexibility here in how you use what you've already cut. You could do this even wider if you want it to be 10.5 inches tall or 11 inches. By just doing that, you just narrow your the clearance at the top and the bottom. So this kind of is going to sit in like such. I'm not going to put things together yet because I need to cut or punch my border pieces first. So here's how things are starting to take shape. You can start to dry fit your pieces together. Make sure you like. I do want to put my pinstriping on. I added the pinstriping detail because I figured it needed something. It just needed something. You don't have to. You could do pen doodling line work if you want. I am going to use thin strips cut with that shimmer. So the black shimmer, I need 3 thin strips. And when I say thin, I'm cutting about just a little bit of a little more than a 1/8 of an inch. So you can see here how I'm doing this. I am coming in here and I'm going to not quite go all the way to the edge of my gray cutting mat or the cutting strip. I'm kind of I'm past my second dash, but I'm not all the way to the edge. The biggest thing is you want them to be relatively thin and you want them to be consistent. And you'll need 3 of them. I think my second one got a little thick. I'm going to cut a 4th one because my second one was a little too thick. Yeah, I think that's better. Yep. Okay. Now here is where you have your option. You could use some repo adhesive. You could use your glue pen. Repo, I think, is going to be the easiest. I'm actually going to move those pieces out of the way. So I just have this piece here. I'm going to use my repo adhesive. And I don't need to go all the way across my 12 inches. It is going to overhang. And when I put this on, I want to extend beyond this piece, this edge down here, and I'll extend beyond over here. So that is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to keep it nice. I'm only about 1/8 of an inch from the outside edge. I'm eyeballing it. But here you can see I've extended beyond. That's an important part. Next, I'm going to take another 12-inch piece and come across over here. Again, extending beyond. I should definitely be crossing my first strip. I don't need to put on more than 6 inches worth of the adhesive. And I'm going to extend beyond. So we can see that overlap. That's what you want. You want an overlap. Because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my micro tip scissors. And if you need to grab your multi-purpose tool, because you want to lift, you want to come in under here and you want to lift up your pieces, the strips. You just want to free them right there where they cross. Because then what I'll be able to do is come in with my scissors and I'm going to snip. Then I can pull this one away, pull that one away, and I've got a nice, reasonable corner there. And then, of course, I can trim the outside edges. Now I'll repeat that on the other edge. First, using my longer strip. It doesn't matter. You could put the short strip on first if you wanted to. As long as they overlap. And then come in there with that remaining short piece. Just lifting it up with my multi-purpose tool and then coming back in with my scissors and cutting those pieces. Then I can trim it all up and I'll have that pinstriping done. You could go ahead and go to the sides over here if you wanted as well. If you really wanted to frame out the whole thing, I'm okay with leaving it open on the sides, but you could put pinstriping on the sides as well. All right, so now still using my black shimmer paper, I'm going to go ahead and punch with the palm trees punch. And I'm sorry that I used it, but we were in LA and we were in San Diego. There was no palm trees in sight where we were playing, but I still felt it was a good option. And even for the tournament we have coming up this weekend, maybe I'll use this instead if there's palm trees in the area. I don't know. It just speaks California to me for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and punch some palm trees. You could use whatever border punch you want. You could not have anything there. Maybe it's going to be just fine without any detail. There we go. So now I do need to measure off of my old one, my first one, because I'm not 100% sure how tall this needs to be. I need to cut this at about 2¼ inches. Should do it. 2¼ inches from the tallest palm tree should give me enough space there. And I could probably give myself a little bit more if I wanted to. 2¼ Now I do need to punch with linear plaid. So while I have this already here, I'm going to cut off a piece of 1 inch strip of 1 inch of the shimmer paper. That is going to back my linear plaid. So this strip will go at the bottom and we'll give where you see over here, I need that piece there. So I have that cut already. So now what I need to do is this piece here is going to be, I do want to pay attention to make sure if you have a pattern, I want to make sure my pattern's going to be okay. I don't think it really matters. My pattern needs to go this way, looking at how my red sits on there. it needs to go this way. So if this is my bottom piece, I'm going to go ahead and punch that. I'm going to put this in my uh, paper tray of my border maker system. Tessa, you could have given those the Amish gentleman a quick tutorial on how to use the border maker system.
Well, I didn't want to distract them from what their real purpose was.
Well, that's true. I mean, you didn't have a beginner class in the system. You could have.
You know what? That would have been amazing if I thought about that ahead of time.
Yeah. Next time you redo your kitchen, you'll remember.
I'm never going through this again, but if there was a next time.
Yeah, the kitchen remodels are no joke.
No.
All right. So there we go. I've got my bottom piece done. My top piece, give me a little bit of. I do know that I cut off one of my palm trees because it didn't fit very well. That half palm tree that sits there didn't fit my vibe very well. And this piece, I'm going to use my other one to help guide where my palm trees need to go. And I remember now, well, maybe I remember. It looks like they sit at about 1.5 inches down from the top. So I'll use that. 1.5 inches from the top is where my palm trees are going to sit. The top, where the ground of my palm trees is 1.5 inches from the top of my strip. The one thing I did have is my paper is a little short. It's a little short. I think I came in with one of my little strips, my leftover thin strips, and added it. So like something like this, I have that thin strip. I'm going to put a little bit of repo adhesive on it. I'm actually going to cut it. And I'm going to lift and slide this under there to fill that gap. I probably could have come in just with a black marker and you'd never know the difference. But there we go. Good enough. Now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and I need to put my page mat on here. And the page mat sits let's see, it's 2.5 inches from the top, the edges here. 2.5 inches is where that's going to sit. So I'm using regular adhesive. I'm going to come across the bottom edge of my piece here. I want to make sure this lines up nicely on my cutting mat. And this piece will sit on here at 2.5 inches from the top. So that outside edge is 2.5 inches from the top. I think I had ink on my ruler. I may have to come back and reface that page mat. I'm getting a little bit of ink. I think my ruler, since I used that marker on there and I didn't wipe it off with the baby wipe. So I got a little bit of the journal pen on my fingers. So that's how that piece goes in. And then the bottom, I'm going to again put that adhesive on this piece, on the 3-inch piece. I'm going to line up the top at 12 inches because I don't necessarily want to make an assumption that this bottom one is going to sit out there at 2.5 inches. Because if you do have a little bit of, maybe your pencil lines weren't 100% perfect or whatever. My goal for the bottom one is I know this bottom piece has to come in. It cannot be any further down than 12 inches here. So I kind of slid it in gently. I've got everything lined up here, and I'm just going to wiggle this bottom piece around until I like where it sits. It looks nice and straight. And then I'll come in and go ahead and get that all nice and tight there. Now I did 4x6 photos over here, and then I have 3.5 by 5.5 inch photos. So of this piece, this is more than 6 inches wide. I'll go ahead, trim this to 6 inches wide, and then cut it down into 4-inch segments. So I'll have 4x6 mats. You can do whatever size mats work for you. You've got some flexibility on how you move things around depending on what you need this layout to do for you. Initially, I thought I would come all the way across, straight across. Now, obviously, I can't do that with 4x6s. I could have come in with like 3.5 by or 3 3/4 by 6 or so forth, but you can see you've got some options there. But in general, here's what I'm going with. You can see both of those. And I will, when I did this layout, I shifted things to be very centered on this page, right? I had fairly even margins over on this side, the left and the right. When I'm combining this into a 2-page layout, probably what I would do is I would actually pull these pieces up, and they're going to get moved over towards the side a little bit so that I'm a little more centered overall on the page. And you can see I can move things around. And they would come in like this. The downside is here, because I do have this, I didn't mirror them, is it does impact, you can't see this piece here. I could shift things up if I wanted to. I could shift them up. I start to go and up here with my mats, but you can kind of play around with it a little bit. It just depends on if you want to still maintain being able to see that bottom peak. So you can put your photos on however suits your photos best. I will probably have peekaboo pockets in action. I don't know. We'll have to see what my photos. I did get a new lens. I'm very excited about that. I think I talked about it during Scrapbook Live, that I was very excited about my new lens. That worked magically, though. You guys will probably laugh at this. I literally walked out of Scrapbook Live on Friday and went straight into like the final packing stage. I got done around 2. We needed to be out the door by 2:45 to get Cody from school and head over to San Diego. So then I got everything packed. I could not find my battery charger for my camera. I knew everything. My battery was dead. I was like, oh my gosh, where's my charger? Miraculously, randomly found it in the garage in a spot that it wasn't supposed to be, but whatever, found it, put it in my bag, off we go. Go to the ball field the next morning, the playing field, and I forgot to charge my battery. I was just so mad, so mad. But then I found a second battery in my bag that surprisingly was still charged. So it worked out okay. It worked out really good. Thank you so much for joining us. Just as a reminder, we will be sending out the recording from today's video. That should come out to you tomorrow sometime. And of course, if you came in late and you need to see it sooner, you can maybe check YouTube later tonight. I do try to get those uploaded, but sometimes YouTube is a little finicky and I don't actually get them published until tomorrow. But they will be there if you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I think turn on notifications. I think you then get an email when we add a new video to our YouTube channel, which pretty much just happens every month. for Power Hour. And then the next big thing coming for us is going to be our winter frolic. So that is our 8-week scrapbook challenge, where we come in every single Monday with a fresh, brand new challenge layout. Tessa does 4 weeks. I do 4 weeks. We kind of alternate back and forth. And then every Thursday, there is a throwback layout where we are taking older content, could be from creative memories, things that we have done in the past, that she and I have both done in the past, and we refresh them with new tools, new products. We put photos on everything because it's all about getting photos on your page. So it's all about getting progress on your projects. So it is a lot of fun. That starts, the Zoom kickoff crop is going to be on January 4th. That is the only thing that we do via Zoom. Everything else is done as a pre-recorded or is done as a live. Everything is always recorded. So if you cannot attend something, the recording will be available for you the next time that you are ready to sit down and scrapbook. But it is a delight. It's $39. You can register at our website. There will be a link in the email that goes out to you tomorrow with all of the details too. So you can click the link from there. But truly, we are so happy you were able to join us. We will see you all again in 2026, January 4th for the Zoom kickoff. We know you all want to be there, but you do have to register for that one. It is, you have to be part of Winter Frolic to get access to that Zoom crop. I'm not sure how Tessa's going to finagle out a FOMO email this time. It might look a little suspect, I think, if you did it again.
I forgot about that when I sent the Zoom link to all of Power Hour.
Yeah. So it probably won't be something like that again, but we would love for you guys to join us. And then I have no idea when January Power Hour is going to be because we have not looked at our schedule. And is Campbell playing basketball? No. So
probably the 13th, but we'll confirm.
Yeah, we'll double check our calendars and take a look there. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that fun stuff. Be sure to check out the new the sale with Creative Memories. There is some the free shipping promotion is happening now. That's pretty awesome. And there's some really great deals out there. If there are some tools that you don't have that you may even be like, do I really need this? For $8 for a BNC, I mean, come on. I mean, except maybe Canoe.
That's what
bless Canoe's heart. That but even for $8, Canoe could just end up in your stocking, right? So, all right, everyone, take care. I will see Canoe's not the one that you want. I get it. I totally do. All right, everyone, we will see you all again in January. Thanks so much for joining us.